The Chiefs.
Yeah.
And then, but he just got hurt, it seemed like, all the time. He never really did. And then Bobby Elliott, he was academic All-American.
I'd like to stop you right there because Rod and Joe, again, two of the nicest guys you ever want to meet. Just huge, massive guys. They manned the left side of the line in the 70s, both first-team All-Americans.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
And then you got Jimmy Caldwell. You know, I mean, my gosh, there was some pretty good talent around here, and it was it kind of fun. You know, I remember you told me about Jimmy. You said you might be going out on Friday or Saturday night. Jimmy would be home studying.
Yeah,
He'd be sitting in a Hillcrest.
You know, it doesn't surprise me, Jimmy's where he's at today, because I can remember there was 30 of us that came in as freshmen in '73.
Oh, wow. That's a big class.
About 4 to 5 years later, you know, only 7 or 8 of us actually had degrees. True
really?
story.
Oh,
True story.
okay.
But I remember my redshirt year, that 5th year I was playing, I still have this vivid in my mind today. I'm on the ground stretching out, and here's Jimmy walking by me already as a graduate assistant
No
coach.
kidding. Oh, I didn't know that.
Okay, so here he is today, head coach of the Indianapolis Colts.
You
But that's the
bet.
kind of guy he was. He was, you know, he liked to have his fun, but he worked hard too.
Yeah.
Very
he worked
focused,
very hard.
Tom.
That's where he is
Jim
today.
Caldwell.
That's
You bet.
interesting.
What were you guys? What was the camaraderie like back then amongst the players in the '70s?
I'd say it was pretty good. I mean, because when I came, most of the athletes that I met were, well, amongst that we had a large class. When you started recruiting 30 people and giving away 30 scholarships a year, and the year before that having 27 scholarships given out, I mean, that is the nucleus of the team to be made for the next couple of years. And there were guys here from all over the United States. I mean, you pick a part of the country, they came to Iowa to play ball. And I think when you look at it, basically the things that it incorporates is the camaraderie from playing football and the opportunity to go to a great school. I think those were 2 outputs that I had recognized back at that time.
Out of those 30 guys, how many would you think went through the 4 or 5 years with you guys? Do you remember 20, 25 maybe? Because, you know, attrition, get hurt, guys get homesick.
Yeah.
Would you say somewhere in that era?
I'd say when my first year with Big Mom, when we spent our freshman year, we stayed at the Ramada Inn, away from the from the end.
It's not even there anymore.
The Ramada Inn. What do you mean you spent the Ramada Inn?
Well, that's where two
That's
days.
where 2 a days.
Oh,
is.
gotcha.
Yeah, that's where we spent our 2 a days. That's
Okay.
the Ramada Inn.
They did that a lot.
And you see some cabs pulling up like at 1 and 2 in the morning.
Oh, really?
Getting them and going back home.
Oh, no
saying,
kidding.
I can't take this. I can't handle that.
Really?
And and a lot of those guys, they just snuck right out in the middle of the night, and you never saw them again.
Wow.
You know?
See, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
it always happens. I can remember calling my parents in my sophomore year, telling them I wanted to come home. My father wouldn't even talk to me.
Really? Oh, wow.
True story. He wouldn't
That's
even
pretty
talk
good,
to me.
yeah.
So, but you know,
Was this right after that? Wow, you got.
Were you hurt?
it was the spring semester that I was, you know, going through.
Rehabbing?
You know, 19 years old.
Rehabbing
going through
with
some
your
change.
knees too,
Yep.
yeah.
And I just didn't think I wanted to be here anymore. I thought I wanted to go back to Pittsburgh and work in the steel mill. What a mistake that would have been.
No kidding.
So you're glad Dad said
Exactly.
to stay
Yeah.
put.
Exactly. My father wouldn't even talk to me.
Wow, that's interesting.
True
All
story.
right.
Love him to death, but he wouldn't talk
Yeah.
to me about coming home,
know,
leaving college.
But Big Monk stayed, you know, and that's another thing that you could talk about too. You know, when it comes time for players to rehab and fix injuries, the facilities and things that they have today is outstanding.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, the miracle drug back when I was there was an ice pack.
That's true. That's true.
You know, that was a miracle drug.
Yeah, there you
know? And, you know, playing with pain was just a part of the game.
Yeah.
Now, injury, you
Right.
couldn't walk. Obviously, you couldn't play, you know. But at any other time, you know, you'd play with a little
Tape it up.
pain,
Yeah.
and you'd be out there.
Yeah. You think about our history and experience as Division I collegiate football players, and you know, I don't know of too many players at all that like 2-a-days.
Oh, no.
You know, there's somebody walking around with a horn at, you know, 5 o'clock in the morning. Time to get up. You know.
I did that.
You do that?
I had to
It's
do
time
it
to get-
in the hallway. And then the first year, we actually called them up. We literally called them up and said, hey, get up. You know?
Yeah,
They got, okay, you know.
And you just
yeah,
want to.
we'd literally go from room to room and
Yeah.
call each number. And then, you guys had to get down to breakfast by 7-ish and be done by 7:30-ish, then get over and be taped by 8-ish, be on the field by quarter after. We had to hose the field down before practice because it was so hot, because we're down in the with the AstroTurf, and afternoons, it was 100 degrees, and there was no wind. And I'll never forget this Carl. Remember Carl lived in Hillcrest and stuff? The nozzle came off the hose, and these were fire hoses, major PSI, whatever, literally lifted him off the ground. Now we can laugh, but man, he could have got slammed down like a great big serpent, He's wrestling that thing. And oh my gosh, I don't know how you guys did it, I swear.
That's the point I was going to make too. Along with everything you said that we had to do, I don't know of anybody that really. There were probably 2 or 3, but that really loved two-a-days, even today in college football, because it was always hot.
Yep.
You were always tired and sleepy, and it's like, geez, we got to run more sprints. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
That's true.
One thing we want to remember, Sports Beat fans, is Bob Cummings was a high school coach before he came to coach the Hawkeyes. He was a former Hawkeye player, then he was a coach at Massillon High School in Ohio. He came directly from high school to coach the Hawkeyes. Now, that was a pretty interesting deal back then. Now, he said his highest point and his lowest point as a college coach, his highest point was beating Joe Paterno at Penn State 7-6, and his low point was losing to Lee Corso, coach at Indiana. And what did we get beat, 14-10?
14-7, and a 5'7", 174-pound four-string running back ran for 194 yards
for
against
Indiana.
us. Yeah.
And Monk, earlier you were saying a little something about Lee Corso.
Well, I remember like a couple of days before the game, Coach Cummings was talking about the upcoming game against the Hoosiers, and he just really kind of went off about Lee Corso.
Really?
He thought Lee Corso was kind of a flake, and he really didn't like him. I actually remember the pregame handshake. Lee Corso came out. This is one of those vivid things I do remember. Lee Corso came out to shake his hand. He was all happy, you see him on TV today.
Yeah,
honest to goodness. And Coach Cummings shook his hand, kind of turned his head, like, one of those things.
That's a
He
good
did
one.
not
Yeah.
like Lee Corso.
That's interesting.
Wasn't a big fan of Lee's.
No,
Well, that's probably why he said that was such a hard thing to get over, getting beat there. Of course, we were on a run at that time, and things were getting better, but that was a bad deal. So.
You're talking about high and low points. We were just talking about that USC loss in '74. We got beat 41-3, but we held Heisman Trophy runner-up Davis to 6 yards running that day. We had 363 yards total offense. They only had 232. We had 249, outrushed them 249-118. We ran 91 plays, and they only ran 44. What happened was we led 3-0, and then we ended up beating 41-3. They had an 80-yard kickoff return, and this defensive back named Charlie Phillips caught 2 Iowa fumbles in midair and returned them for touchdowns. One was 83 yards, the other was 98, and on that 98-yard one, Iowa had started their drive from the 1-yard line. And Rodney Wellington's going up and over, the ball pops up. Now, from what I heard, is the guy starts running, and somebody in the stands had like a whistle, and they blew it, and so everybody kind of stops. Well, it wasn't the referee, so I just thought that was pretty amazing.
The fact that we held
game.
Anthony Davis, who finished second to Archie Griffin in the Heisman Trophy, going to 6 yards.
Oh my gosh.
Was an amazing
Pat
feat.
Hayden was quarterback.
Yep.
He's the athletic director now at USC.
Yep.
But we were talking about stats here, and I was going through some of these before we came on. In '74, Jim Jensen had 659 yards, 4-point average. He scored 1 touchdown. He was the leading rusher for Iowa, and he played in 11 games. Adam Robinson, who played in 10 games, had 941 yards, 4.6 yards a carry, 10 touchdowns. Now, going down to passing, now this is what really gets me. Rob Fick, his percentage was 48% back then. Passed for 1,000 yards, 6 touchdown passes, and 12 interceptions.
Yikes.
He would get credit. I mean, Stanzier's like 17 and 15 last year, 17 TDs, 15.
Yeah.
And we still win 11 games, but that was because we just had such a great. Stanzi this year completed 65% of his passes, 2,800 yards. And before the bowl game, he had 25 TDs, and he had only 4 picks.
He had a great
He
year.
threw 2. Now receiving, Billy Schultz caught 25 that year, led the team, 430 yards. Marvin McNutt had 51 catches for 798. We had about 5 players that caught more than 21 passes that year. The punting was pretty close. Joe Hepner punted 53 times, Ryan Donahue 51. Joe averaged 36.6 and Donahue 44.6. And they're talking about Donahue being the #1 punter drafted this year in the NFL.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a whole different era.
Well,
back
the
then.
emphasis definitely was put on the run back then, and you guys being offensive linemen probably liked that.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Yeah, it was a little different. I can remember Butch Caldwell being the leading rusher
That's right.
in a game, you know,
Oh,
where the
yeah.
quarterback
Yeah.
had more yards than any than the running backs and the receivers and everything.
Because that
But
first year they ran that wing T. Did you pull a lot then
We
as
pulled.
a guard?
You either pull right, you either
Oh,
pull
yeah.
left,
Yeah.
or straight ahead. I mean, it wasn't a complicated play at all.
Uh-huh.
But you know, you had that endurance and that wind to get it done. You know,
Yeah.
and that was his game plan. You know, and I think a lot of teams began to figure that out too. We needed a change in our game plan. You know?
right, mix it up a little
Yeah.
bit. Well, that's just it. The defenses, it kind of came to a point where the defenses, hey, we got this whole thing figured out. And then they started, to beat them, you got to learn how to pass. Now anymore, offenses, the great ones, can do everything, just the evolvement of football.
That's true.
Well, we only passed. If Fick threw
Yeah.
160 passes in 11 games, 10 games, that would be 16 passes a game.
Yeah.
That's not a lot of passes.
No, it isn't.
Right.
You
no,
know, in
no.
today's
No.
day, if
Not-
you don't
not
throw,
about today's
if you don't throw
standard.
25,
Right.
then you're a running team.
exactly.
So it's a lot of changes that went on. Well, everybody wanted to go the 3 yards in a cloud of dust. Woody Hayes, Bo Schembechler, that's what they did.
No dust at Kinnick, though, right,
Yeah.
Monk?
No Dustin Kinnick.
You were talking earlier a little bit about the turf.
AstroTurf, coming out of high school, I thought it was going to be great to play on AstroTurf until I actually played on it. It was kind of like playing on the carpet that's in this production studio right now. It really was. It was very hard. You got burns and scrapes all the time. It wasn't all it was cracked up to be. And your feet really did get stuck in AstroTurf.
No kidding.
Yeah, they really did. On those days when it was kind of hot out and there was maybe the turf was a little bit wet, but not like it had been an all-day rain or something like that, your foot did get stuck in AstroTurf and you go to move, but your foot would stay there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's what I remember about AstroTurf. It really wasn't a lot of fun playing on.
Well, you see, AstroTurf was actually invented to be inside, and it wasn't supposed to have the heat and the snow and the freezing, because then after that AstroTurf laid down, it was just like almost like you said, running on this carpet.
Right.
And did you guys ever get turf toe? Did you remember?
boy.
Oh, yeah.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Now, would
Yeah.
you just get your foot caught and then you just burn the whole time?
Just stubbing it, like you said. It's
Oh,
like
okay.
bouncing it off of concrete. You
Wow.
know.
Yeah.
You know,
There
to
have been a
turf
lot
toe.
of injuries back then, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because of the turf.
Well, we
you
practiced
figure,
on
or-
the
I
field.
thought so.
And and then when Hayden came, see, they would practice on grass during the week. So they, we'd get guys banged up in practice
Well,
more than
that's what I wanted to say. To me, I have 2 short stories here.
Yeah.
One's a personal opinion. When Coach Cummings was fired, I was done by then. My career was over. But Coach Cummings got fired the year after my last year. And they brought in Hayden Fry. And in my personal opinion, the 3 best things he did for Iowa football was he first of all instituted discipline for the players. I mean, true discipline. And then he changed the non-conference schedule.
Yeah.
He got the USCs and the Arizonas and the UCLAs and the Penn States off the non-conference schedule. And then the third thing was he told them to take out the AstroTurf and put in natural grass.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think those were the 3 major changes that Hayden Fry did to become successful. And sure enough, 3 years later, here they are in the Rose Bowl when like a decade and a half before that, the Big Ten was really the Big 2 and the Little 8.
That's
right.
It was Ohio State and Iowa.
The first ones to
Ohio
break
State and Michigan before Iowa broke in after Hayden Fry had coached here 2 or 3 years.
a little side note on that. I was just telling you guys that there were 16 players that started in the Rose Bowl that were recruited by Cummings. So the talent was basically there.